Good day, my crypto friends. It's a pleasure to see you. Today, we're here with EOS Tribe, and we've got some interesting things to talk about. We're going to talk about the EOS chain pause and then some of the politics that are going on surrounding a phishing scam that took 1,300 accounts and then were saved partially by EOS Tribe here. So we're going to talk about the politics and the human aspect of that and what's really going on with EOS right now. So let's start the interview. Eugene, Steve, welcome to the show again. And you guys are doing really big things for the community. I appreciate it. So why don't you guys just, yeah, absolutely. Why don't you guys just get into it and talk a little bit about the chain pause and then this phishing attack and what's really going on with EOS right now?
So let me start with the chain pause. That was a bug in the software that was not tested just due to its nature. It wasn't a attack on a blockchain. It was related to a delayed transaction that was invalid, that was passed in a block earlier, and that block was integrated into blockchain. But then when timer was activated to execute that invalid transaction, that's when the whole chain basically halted. And it was by design. Whenever something goes wrong, you're best to halt at the time of error occurs, the whole blockchain, so you don't integrate this error into blockchain. And then active block producers have to intervene manually, recover this problem, and restart and continue the blockchain. And that's exactly what happened. We all jumped on a call.
It worked just as it was supposed to.
Yeah, it was by design. It wasn't a hack or anything. It was just due to technical problem. We found the root cause. What caused it? It was basically 3 lines code fix to resolve this problem. We pushed a new code version. Everybody deployed. We restarted and continue on like nothing happened, basically. So that was the story of it.
Good. That's good to see the chain. I mean, the main thing there is the chain didn't crash or fall apart. It has a built-in safety mechanism where if there's something that needs to be fixed, the chain will pause itself, so a bunch of transactions don't get pushed through on a bad chain. It'll pause itself, it gets fixed, and then it continues again. So nothing lost there. Okay.
And there was actually another component to the account recovery of people who are token holders who are victim of phishing scams that were confirmed to in fact have been, they have been scanned out of their coins. There was a decision being made on whether to have ECAF make sure that was in place to actually handle this, because the actual at this time the BPs are both the legislative and basically the executive branch right now, so they would have been arbitrating against themselves. As Rick and others from EOS New York. And we do agree with that fundamental decision. It's just that as with any politics or any group trying to come to a consensus, there hasn't been enough leadership or people to just say it sometimes and just push the best thing through. And I think I wanted to be on that call, and what we're proponents of in that debate was a mix of both. And that would have been to have the BPs come together, even us in the top 40 or top 49, to donate a percentage of tokens to those token holders so they could be made whole immediately, and then wait for 72 hours for ECAF and the statement to be in place to have at least an interim person to arbitrate, so we could also remove the liability. So in that way, the token holders are getting their compensation, but the ECAF director or at least interim director could have been in place to actually take over the case. So it was a really tough decision, that had to be made. And had I been in there, I would have found a better middle ground that would have like made everybody whole in that situation. It just wasn't brought up. And I was maybe 4 hours late on the meeting and the overall outcome of that. So just so the token holders know, EOS Tribe will always find a way to protect your investment, period. Whether you're an enterprise company and a whale, or you're the smallest token holder with like 10 tokens, like that is our very first directive, to make sure nobody gets ripped off, no one is being censored, and that the chain is stable and secure. That is always our first directive. And like we say, it's like, people before, just process, like we have to look at the people layer of these discussions and be human about it. You know what I mean? We can't just be cold, heartless, autocratic machines. That's not our job as BPs. So.
And how many tokens were affected about?
So it was around 1,300 of tokens affected. And to add to
1,700.
Steve's statement, and also information for all token holders, in case if your account was hacked before or after chain went live, you have a resource called EOS911.io, where you can go and file a claim, and provide evidence of a hacked account. And EOS Tribe works with, other technical block producers to look into those cases and investigate and try to recover those funds. We're working on some of those cases.
And the work with, EOS 42 and Liam, who took the charge on that, deserve a huge nod, for their work on that. We're going to add a lot of design and public awareness to their campaign here in the coming months, just to make sure there's a funnel for everybody who gets ripped off, with these scams. And there's some type of resolution. I mean, we wish that there was something like this in crypto. We do, for people who lose tokens. Obviously Eugene had a buddy who lost 1,000 tokens, and if now there's a recourse for that guy because he has his address, and that's really powerful.
So that was one of the most complicated cases that we had, and I'm still looking into that one because the accounts that got those stolen tokens actually activated, and it's on EOS blockchain, but have to basically provide enough evidence to take action. And
it was a DNS hack from my Ether wallet. So it was that famous DNS hack for my Ether wallet. We know people that this is affected, so it's close to home. Like we have friends and family who have lost tokens to those situations. So it's really important to us to be the example. There's so many people that don't want us to win right now. There's a lot of other chains and a lot of other projects that, whether they're saying it or not, are very opportunistic in their criticisms. And I'm like, this is the first global consensus that have ever been reached on a chain that was launched by the community. Almost all chains, if you study how these chains are launched, are done privately and vetted and pen tested in an environment before they take on public nodes. This has never been done before. Anything like this, a governance layer, account recovery, arbitration, this is not, we're a new territory. I mean, we've never seen these behavioral economic models at play in any other system in the world. So I think that the people out there just need to be patient and let us stumble, let us make some mistakes and get it right, because that's one of the great things about EOS is we can vote it out if it doesn't work. If we see it turning into an aristocracy and there's no recourse to vet or prove that there are nodes stealing inflation from the network or bad actors, then it can be changed out in a smart contract. And the public can have a voice in that. So all of you token holders, if you got 10 or 100, watch who you vote for. Watch how you distribute your vote, because there's a lot of us that have this in our blood, and we do care about the future of EOS. And we don't want it to be clogged with the toxic pump and dump culture of the other currencies that have caused so much negativity towards this space. We want to help clean it up and represent a stand-up operation and the way things are supposed to be done. That's very important to us. That's what's going to drive adoption. We got to clean this stuff up and be the example. Whether you're the token holder or you're the BP at the highest level, we all have a responsibility to bring the best of the ideas into this space and just be a good example. When people look at us and go, oh, but look at, we want to be the guys they point to and go, wow, they really got their stuff together over there. They kind of figured it out, like that's who we want to be, because that's what's going to drive adoption for crypto and bring this movement to the forefront,
Yeah, a little bit earlier you said that in the governance that the BPs were acting in two roles currently. Could you dive a little bit deeper into that and explain that to people?
It's difficult because normally ECAF would be an operating branch of the arbitration layer. Mm-hmm. And all cases filed by BPs, whether they're on the receiving end of it or they're filing it, would be handed over to ECAF to basically find resolution. That structure is not in place yet. We're a week out from launching the chain. So, I mean, these guys are scrambling. Like I said, the work of EOS New York, of EOS Dublin, EOS 42 and ourselves and many others have definitely tried to be a part of that debate and drive it forward, but we can't, right now at this current time, it's on the BPs. So if a case comes in and then we approve arbitration, we could be arbitrating on ourselves if that was not the correct resolution. If in fact that someone got their tokens taken within that, we facilitated it. Now we've created another arbitration case on ourselves by being actors who implemented that. So it's very, very important at this phase that we just try to be patient and make balanced decisions, both for the liability of incumbent BPs and, for the best interests of the token holders. And moving forward, let this statement resonate. We can, as BPs, even us little guys in the top 40 or 50, can actually find resolution to this simply by donating our stake if it's a small amount. And then that could be resolved later through arbitration, and we could be made whole. Because what is 1 or 2 days of token inflation for us to donate to make sure some people got treated right? That's nothing. We could do that with 4 or 5 BPs and pay off these cases and be the example of what they're expecting from us. That's what they're expecting from us right now, whether anyone says it or not. I'm just trying to be vocal about it. They expect us to step up whatever the case is. And if we've got it, give it to them. That doesn't mean it could be gamed. They still have to prove their keys. They still have to prove that it was their property. But if in fact it was, some of us BPs should just step up and donate during this time of uncertainty, because it would quell a lot of FUD and doubt.
Okay, so let me repackage that a little bit. Basically, we have people who've lost tokens, the token holders. They've got phished. They've basically had their accounts semi-hacked, and they've lost tokens. It comes to EOS to repair that situation, but since it's so new, arbitration's not up and fully functioning yet. So now where's that fall? And you're saying that with
BPs right now,
and you're saying that BPs are being receiving token rewards. Maybe a BP or a few BPs step in and just give the money back to those people for now, and we'll fix it when arbitration comes. But we'll fix it with the BPs.
To do that. We're not even receiving that many rewards. We've maybe got 300 or 400 tokens in the last 4 or 5 days, and we would donate that to make this right in a heartbeat.
So let me clarify what the decision was. The funds were not lost because all tokens staked after blockchain went live was frozen for 3 days, and we had that call just hours before unfreeze, and the question stated was, should we freeze hacked account to avoid funds being stolen or transferred? And there's a lot of discussion about that and lots of uncertainties and different options discussed. But at the end, decision was made to freeze those hacked accounts to avoid funds being stolen.
That was kind of the precursor to what I'm talking about. There's a human layer and an outcome of that and other decisions we could have made. He's speaking to the exact technical issue and how it was handled in that moment, which certainly could have had some more discussion. Some people literally are working 16, 20 hours a day as it is. So I think it's just the human layer of people cross time zones and doing their best to make the right decision while also not assuming a lot of liability. And in the end, they took the liability. They actually froze the accounts and made sure that. So we're making good decisions, but we could get better at this. All BPs and supporting nodes certainly understand that we could make, we could learn from this and make better decisions in the future. And I personally am going to be a lot more involved in those discussions and say my case, because I totally feel like where a lot of token holders are coming from. They just want to be made whole. They don't know all this politics and they don't care.
Yeah.
They just want us to do the right thing and make sure that things are done expeditiously and on time. And there's not any kind of bureaucracy that obviously that Eugene speaks out a lot about. And he's right about that. It's our jobs to make quick decisions and not to have to call our bosses and have this hierarchy, because that's the very bureaucracy we're trying to get away from. You want efficiency, you want execution, you want people who fundamentally understand the issues. And, I give my word to the token holder community. I'm going to be in a lot more of those meetings and, fighting for you guys out there. So your voice is heard at every one of these meetings. Not that the others aren't, but it just is sometimes very passive, and people are just tired. I get what it is. I'm just always on a 9. So
you must sleep hard, man.
We made that public statements at EOS earlier. That EOS Tribe, is independent operation. We are not owned by anyone. We do not report to anyone. We do not have any bosses. We make decisions ourselves on behalf of token holders. We don't have to report to. We don't have large corporations or whales behind us. We are just riding on a popular vote. They're relying on token holders.
We were the popular candidate in the U.S. If you looked at the first day of voting when the U.S. voted, we're like number 4 through 9 consistently. But when Asia voted, we weren't. And we want to send a message to Asia that we respect and love you guys. You have like the foundations of civilization that you have brought to humanity. Like there is nothing but the utmost respect. We don't always agree with politics and some government and but that's none of our business as libertarians. Like however you want to run your country is your business. You know what I mean? We just want to integrate better and create a better dialogue. And for you guys to kind of not see all Westerners as just these brutes. We're passionate and we're animated, and it might throw you off a little bit, but we speak from the heart, you know what I mean? And we just value independence and freedom, and that's all it is. We just have different ways of approaching problems, and we need everybody. We need all of us to make this new global society work. We really do. So from the bottom of our hearts, from EOS Tribe in Asia, ni hao, we love you. You know, that's all we're trying to do, man. Let you guys know. And we know that the women always make the decisions with finances anyway. So
there you go. Yeah. Well, I think one of the important points that you guys hit on that needs to be reiterated is that the chain's only been launched for a week. And the way that this was launched, because it was so much different than anything else we've done, is all the tools had to be built basically. Once this is launched, you have to start implementing the governance, and you have to start implementing these
tooling, the worker proposal system.
The worker proposal system, yeah.
Man, that is like $800 million a year.
Yeah, and so we're like, we have tools that are being built as quickly as possible right now, and these things are going to get a lot smoother. We're in a really awkward period, and some of these situations you're talking about with not having the arbitration yet is an anomaly, to be honest. So we've got maybe a little while of this. How long do you think until we've got arbitration up, we've got worker proposals up, and we've got the main tools up for the chain?
There's a technical side to that, and Eugene will give you the technical answer, and then from kind of a front-facing and the people part, I'll give you an answer.
So again, I'm just talking from my perspective. I may be right, I may be wrong. I hope it's just a matter of days, 1 week at most, before we have it all in place and funded, right? So we had to accumulate enough inflation to fund those organizations. So.
Okay.
Everyone stepped up right away. So as much as we're taking this position of, we stand for the token holders, there have been many others that have been just as diligent as us. We're not trying to take that light just for votes, but I mean, there's definitely our biggest concern on that topic is that with these critical systems like the worker proposal system, the governance layer, and arbitration, we're in a situation where there's like probably 6 or 7 BPs who are not, in the top 40 who are, consolidating. They're using their stake through whales to take inflation out of the network and basically steal those rewards from more deserving BPs who would be paying for these systems, who would be moving the stuff forward faster. So when you allow those people to be voted up where they're at, and you're not staking for the ones who are fighting for the system, you're pulling liquidity and the ability for the whole thing to move. It's very, very important.
Can you dig into that? Can you dig into that a little bit more and explain the dynamic of why those tokens are staying in one place, or how that's working?
Well, for example, Fly to Mars.
Yeah.
Which no one knows who they are, and many are speculating, and we're not going to take a position one way or another until we see the facts. But it's been said that they're actually just a large token holder who has created a fake operation to get themselves into the top and use their stake to collect inflation, who are in fact keeping that stake and not putting it into the system and not paying that forward a percentage to these other projects. They're not building any tooling. I mean, no one even knows who they are. No one knows who owns the domain. No one's known nothing about them. Even though they have the site, like no one right now currently can confirm if they're real people. So the concern with that is maybe they are, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just giving you them as an example. That's someone who's being talked about. So whether there's 6 or 7 that are doing that, of the people that that suspect to be whales just distributing their nodes and trying to collect as much inflation as they can, the problem without verification, real human verification that they are not in fact part of a larger conglomerate is, what if a larger conglomerate who had 10, 50, 100 million tokens was actually doing that with 4 or 5 BPs? They would effectively be able to control the network at some point if they got over the 12. And besides that, they're using the inflation for their own monetary gain and not for the benefit of the network. So if you combine that, that's a bad situation. You know what I mean?
So I would like to add the risk with the current system, voting system, the way it exists. Nothing prevents large financial institutions, let's say when they notice us and they decide to take a control, nothing prevents from, central banks who have all the money or governments to just collect so much stake in a system and EOS and vote themselves into a majority of active block producers, they will actively gain a control of a system.
Right.
So that's a big risk. The only reason it did not happen yet, because they are not big enough. They have not yet noticed, they don't see us as a threat. But then once they will see, they will take advantage of it. And current voting system is flawed. If you take, there is a reason, right? We need to learn from a history and how we came to existing voting systems that we have. If you take a voting system of United States, it's not a popular vote. The reason why it's not a popular vote, what we have in the US blockchain, we don't want small states to be represented, because there are bigger states like California, New York, who have more weight, and they can basically have a majority vote. But we have this, we are not using popular voted states. And so if we don't have a quota established for, EOS system for different countries, for all countries to be represented, right, their voting counted in, and they be able to have their block producer candidates on board, then if it's just based on stakes, then you have a centralization of power, right? If like more than half of active BP are in China, and again, I have nothing against China, but if we have a centralization of power, then basically we fall victim of what we're trying to solve.
One US BP right now. One. We need 2 or 3. And if you do your research on us, all the token holders out there, we have bare metal nodes right now deployed in multiple states. We have redundant systems. We have a more sophisticated hardware setup, at least in the top 5. There are some people with comparable, but we're among them. But yet we're not in the top 20.
We were a group of Ghostbusters, and actually a group of most technical block producers who worked on a security guidelines for all block producers to implement. And we have implemented our infrastructure to be matching those recommendations.
Airtight. Maybe Jim and some governmental hackers could get in there, but it's freaking airtight. Like it would have to be a nation state, probably. Eugene has done, and people get scared about this, and I want to explain this, is that there's 2 debates. People bring this up and say, Eugene used to work for Deloitte and the Federal Reserve, and we don't want those people in this. I'm like, token holder, this guy, Eugene Luskin, has worked on securing some of the highest hacking targets in the world. Do you understand that? And we've got those guys on this chain. So you should, and he loves this movement. He left that world to put all of his time into EOS. He was just an IT security guy. He wasn't some big person in those organizations. He was just a network security guy, like helping secure the system. He wasn't some decision maker, and he left those worlds because he saw that those systems were ineffective and how inefficient and just backward they all were in the decision making and all of it. And he left that world for the startup culture of the last 5 or 6 years. And he's been trying to, develop models that are advantageous and be a part of movements that are advantageous to humanity and the future of his children. The same thing that brought me into this movement. So have a conversation with Eugene about his beliefs and how he looks at those systems, and he'll tell you publicly. He's an open book. Anything you want to know short of security concerns he can't disclose for those organizations, he'll tell you. You know, it's all an open book. You know what I'm saying?
All my information, you know, all my history is just a one Google search away. You know, it's all an open book. I have even listed my cell phone number on our bp.json, okay, so as a support contact. So I'm just, you know, available.
And I am too, like for community stuff, for design, for any help that any other BPs or any other people in the community need to get traction, to get visibility. You know, that's what I'm here for. You know, I'm probably one of the most accessible people besides Kevin in the space. You know, I give props where props is due. Kevin will come in and greet your new person in your group. You know what I mean? Like, we can't all be a beast and up that much, but definitely, like, I could rate myself in the US as one of the most available people in the space on the community side. Anything that you guys out there need or need to better understand or help, that's what we're here for as VPs. We're here to educate you, help onboard you, get more education out there, and for, you know, to be a force multiplier so you guys in your communities can educate people about the power of EOS and what it can do. I mean, this technology, guys, could be transformative. And I hope those in the US understand that it's not just about us. You know, it's bigger than that. And this is stuff that we talked about at Tulip, you know, that there is a shift happening with these new behavioral and economic models that some of the top people in the world who study this stuff are having a hard time discerning where it's going to go. But the technologists who are following understand very clearly. There's a reason we're here. There's a reason you see these sharp entrepreneurs that would normally be over on some big enterprise web app or some new hip thing. Why are we toiling with this EOS thing? Like, who cares? This is so volatile and uncertain because we see that vision. You know, we see it very clearly where it could go and how it could change the world and make it more equitable for the little guy, you know, and the big guy. That's what's so funny. I was just talking to somebody from, you know, who works very closely with, you know, basically the Walmart heads on a new distributed system they're trying to use for their logistics. And he's saying that, you know, he made a point, and we were talking for hours on this, that the big incumbent duopolies have a responsibility to embrace this technology and not be lecherous, to actually play their position as the liquidity arm and the infrastructure arm to help make this stuff happen, because basically they could make a ton of money off the inflation and facilitating these microeconomies. That's what they don't understand is in 10 years, you're going to have an Uber-fied logistics workforce out there and these little microeconomies. You can't stop it. It's already happening. Mm-hmm. So rather than like trying to consolidate and control everything, that's not going to work this time because there's too many variables and people don't want it. So forcing that is actually going to keep them out of it. If they were smart, they'd go, oh, we could actually be the funding arm and the application layer of this stuff and use our workforce and use our connections internationally to facilitate this new movement. And they could be some of the largest stakes on the chains, making inflation, making more money with less liability. It's beautiful. It's like their dream for the last 30 years and they missed it. Mm-hmm. So, and it's like that in a lot of industries. So it's just so funny that the main people that with the money right now are so removed from the innovation. They have no idea how to execute. They're completely lost.
And I think there are some big companies. I've seen some big companies that have been picking it up. IBM, for example, they're seeing kind of this vision and they're shifting.
Another position to play. Yeah, mm-hmm. There's like another role to play that they're not used to. They're like, wait, we have to be stewards?
Yeah.
Steve, yeah. Brendan, I would like to say it's funny that you mentioned IBM. We had a technical session where I teach BP to run, nodes and testnet, mm-hmm. and we did it in Bay Area, city in Foster City, and we did it in a building owned by IBM. Mm-hmm. And as you walk in those offices, it's a very sad place.
Yeah, it is.
You see like empty cubicles, maybe 3 guys sitting bored to death. Mm-hmm. IBM is a giant which is dying.
Mm-hmm.
It's just slowly decaying giant companies that have had its, moments, but they're going away. I don't know how they still survive, but I don't expect IBM to be around much longer.
Well, if they don't get it, and that's what a lot of us are trying to say, is that it's not that we want the giants to die, it's just we want them to readjust their position.
Well, they need to completely abandon their position and kind of go like they need to retransform themselves. They need to turn into a butterfly essentially. But they have a lot of resources if the switch flicks,
Right. I mean, they could add
any company or organization goes through the same life cycle us human beings go. We have our youth, we have our adult, then we mature, then we age. And our brain is just not flexible enough to change. And organizations go through the same phases. They cannot change. They cannot become young again.
Which they have opportunities. The Walmarts and the Amazons and you look and you compare those two organizations, Walmart to Amazon. If Walmart would have been more involved in disruptive innovation at the earlier part of the business cycle, they would be some of the there still are market leaders, but they've lost a massive base to Amazon, and it's not necessary. Like if they utilize these public chains to be more philanthropic in their endeavors, they make more money. They take no liability. They become facilitators, and then they actually can have these, micro incubators regionally to facilitate these microeconomies. So it's just, this has been talked about for the last few years. No one is like leading that charge, but I feel like I said, we in EOS have a responsibility because we're sharp technologists. We pay attention to these trends, and it's unfortunate that that's not at the front of the debate with the leadership of those organizations, because we want to, if you talk to the average EOS VP, we want to integrate with them. We want to help them and for this to be equitable for everyone, but they have to play this game, and they don't like that. They're like, wait, we have to be fair and use free market principles, and we can't just consolidate everything and tell them what to do. No, you have to actually work with people and innovate and create value. That's how this works. So we're tired of it. A lot of entrepreneurs are tired of that conversation, but let it be known from EOS Tribe and a lot of the other VPs we've talked to, we're not like wanting to see the system fail. That's not this movement. We want to integrate with the system and the system to be along with that conversation. If they can't, then they fail, and that's on them. But we're not like activists, like wanting to just see, every incumbent duopoly fail or go the way of the dinosaur. That's not the dialogue. If you talk to the average person, they're failing because they won't come over to this part of the conversation.
And we have a model of this in the past too, with the internet, the emergence of the internet, and you have these communication companies like that were around prior to that either switched and changed or fell into the distance. And it's not like this thing where these guys crash and burn and this takes off. It's a slow, like kind of melding process where the people with vision slowly trickle into one spot, and it starts getting better, and these ones slowly die off, so
and we're trying to tell those enterprise people, don't miss out on this. Come along with this. It is a new model, but like be a part of it. Don't be off on the side and just look at how you can game it, because these models won't work. It'll fork the minute you try to do that. So you can't do that anymore. Like this system won't allow you to operate that way. It takes the little guy into account. We're working that out. We're trying to improve on that. Obviously, it still could be seen as somewhat of an aristocracy in the current voting model, but that's the great thing about EOS is we can change it with a smart contract. Mm-hmm. So, if there's some things that aren't working, you got to think technologists like Dan, all the way up to Dan, down to Eugene and and Rodrigo and the little guys, that we can make a better system over time. You know what I mean? So I want to touch on that, because this entire conversation is so par for the course for like how America has been missing innovation the last 5 or 6 years, like so badly. And we went to the Valley recently at the conference that we all attended, and it was really obvious that the deal makers and the people trying to provide liquidity are not actually like, they don't have this movement in their hearts. They don't really truly understand like everything at play. They're so focused on the old model of even if you need $500,000 to execute, ask for 5 million and then just cash out, and whether it works or not, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really raise, you know, investor confidence. And then you look at our base, and a city like Detroit, one of the reasons we give so much love to Detroit is because Detroit, you guys have to understand out there, that's our manufacturing base. And internationally, when our manufacturing base is crippled and has not rebounded in any tangible way, that affects the deal flow. Do you understand? It's very, very important that we bring back our economic bases, and that, you know, I'm in Dallas, you know, Lambos and Mercedes is what people perceive, but Detroit is our future if we don't watch this. You know what I'm saying? So the people out there need to understand there's a lot on the line with this new wave of innovation that's much deeper than just wind moon. You know, it's I always say it's bigger than crypto. You know, it really is. Like it's something that we have to pay close attention to as entrepreneurs to foster and help, you know, create positive outcomes, you know, with this new technology, just as much that, you know, as people are saying, be stewards, help the infrastructure. Well, we also have to use that to help our own backyard, because that will create a positive feedback loop that keeps investment coming in. So the more that we actually execute, you know, EOS Tribe wants to be a bastion of that, you know, wants to be a shining example that we will not put out at dApps that are, you know, excuse my language, but half-ass, that aren't well thought up, that are obviously, you know, obviously pump and dumps and money plays and have no real like economic model or utility. You will not see us put out garbage. Every single project we attach our name to, or if you see us put out, we are looking very closely at the future of it and how it could solve a problem. And that if all BPs and people that are, whether you're in the top number 49 or you're number 1, we all have a responsibility to do that and to reinvest in areas in our own backyard that create that positive feedback loop. A lot of our logo, people ask, why did you choose the Taurus? Because we really believe in that positive feedback loop, that if you reinvest in the things that matter, you know, and you take that chance, that it serves itself like over time. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. By us believing in American investment in BPs, investing in places like Detroit, bringing back innovation here. And, you know, we were one of the first BPs, literally the first, actually, we just found out, to file in Wyoming. No, not New York, not to take anything away from, not these other, we were the first to file in Wyoming, to put our, you know, on the table, to put it all out there and say, you know what, we're going to keep it here. So that, you know, it means something to us, you know, like it really does. Like we're taking a lot of risk, but, you know, we believe like somebody has to lead that charge. And sure enough, that, you know, because our model was, and the token holders need to understand this, that if we file in the Cayman Islands and these shell companies, we keep liquidity and money outside of the US. And the jobs and the brokerages and the onboarding ramps for all the, you know, asset management companies who are hedge funds in Chicago back 10 years ago, they're all crypto asset management funds right now. Mm-hmm. You know, I went to distributed markets recently in Chicago and learned that. It was like, whoa, like, so we're setting up the infrastructure. It's just starting to happen, but no entrepreneurs have got the balls to step out there and just do it. So we were the first, and we, again, EOS Tribe, there's a reason behind our name. There's a reason behind what we do, you know. So.
Steve, let me add to your point. And, you know, as EOS Tribe, we promised to invest 20% of our token profits above expenses to innovative projects on EOS blockchain. And we are still holding that promise true, even with our modest gains right now. Obviously, we are not making enough to launch a satellite. We are just probably going to be above, you know, expenses, making some, you know, some reasonable revenue, be cash flow positive, basically. And we're still gonna invest those 20% modest gains into projects on the US blockchain. That's our play.
We mean that. We say that. A lot of guys say that, but I think you hung out with us at Tulip, and I think you're a good judge of character, and you wouldn't have given us a second round if you didn't think that message was important. And I think you're also, that's why we align with a lot of you guys in the Bay who see that, you know, see the overspending, the irresponsibility, in the space, and you want better for the space because of the impact it's had on your lives. Like you actually see it in tangible ways. You and your wife, we met, beautiful, beautiful woman, great insights, passionate about programming, and those are the people we need, you know, to lead the charge and to get out there and say, no, let's not do a shit coin. Let's not do whatever, you know, just throw something out there to try to, you know, front run a new idea and just get our names out. How about we add value? How about we really be the things that we're talking about? I had somebody, you know, I come from the you know, design UX world and spent some time on the marketing tracks. And what I learned through those echo chambers is that, you know, basically you get into a lull in any industry. You know, you get into this phase before a new phase starts, where you get into this lull where everyone just kind of wants to stay comfortable, and to innovate too much or to jump to that new rung that really would drive innovation and take us to the next level, the incumbent people don't want to do because they're comfortable and it would disrupt their position. So a lot of us little guys are fighting that fight and getting traction. We're getting these Ether fanboys and these, you know, Bitcoin fanboys to actually come over by being the example, by being the example they want to see, because they realize, wow, they're actually doing tangible things for usability to drive adoption. This could go to the next level. And that's, we don't need to clown them. We need to keep a civil discourse and be nice, not rude. We can be quirky and, you know, snarky and stuff, but we be respectful to, you know, to those people, because, you know, we have to face those judgments as a community, you know what I mean? And head on and deal with them. And that's going to serve as the best example for those people to come in. And that's how we've won a lot of people over. We had people 3 months ago that hated on us locally. I mean, they were like on every thread, you suck, this is not decentralization, every bad thing you could think of, who are active at our meetings in Dallas right now. Same for him and SLC. So it's a fight we have to like continue to fight. You know, it's not over. We got a long way to go. So
and there's this, fundamentally EOS challenges part of what cryptocurrency, the very beginnings of it, where it's this immutable, rock solid, no changes. It's going to move kind of slower, but it can never be touched, like Bitcoin. And then ETH is a good example. The law is code. And so it's
ask Eugene what an enterprise person would think about that. What a real enterprise would say. Well, I mean, he's worked at those levels. Like,
yeah, I think we know because Eugene's working on EOS. So, but fundamentally challenging that and putting this aspect in where, okay, humans are going to be involved, but incentivized correctly. We're going to be able to move more nimbly. It's a fundamental shift. So it's natural for a lot of people to say, this is a shit coin. This isn't going to work. You guys are, you know, and it's natural to draw this hate, but anytime you're doing something that's new or groundbreaking or revolutionary, there's a ton of naysayers, and there's a few that push through no matter what. And I feel like that's the time that we're in, and we're discovering new ground. So it's natural to have all this pushback, and we're gonna have to see if we can make it happen. A lot of people believe in it, and the other thing to note is that EOS is built on our community. It's built on all these people, these, you know, however many people it is, these about 10,000 core people probably that really believe that this can push forward. And if those people continue to believe, like there's only going to be people coming on board. As long as we have more people coming on board than falling off, as long as we're keeping it together and moving it forward, then you know, things are going to be able to continue. So
that's something I talked about at Tulip. My whole keynote at Tulip was about, you know, how usability is going to drive adoption for blockchain in general, not just EOS.
Yeah,
we have to get our proverbial shit together when it comes to that.
And you know, when we are talking about attracting new players into the space, we have to make this whole environment attractive for entrepreneurship, right? If we make it too aristocratic, you know, it's not going to attract new players or innovation. If you can't advance in a system unless, you know, you're rich, if you can't advance based on your merit, then all that merit is going elsewhere. So I will just take all that expert. I hate that some of the technical guys who were contributing in the community and actually stability of EOS blockchain from day one, I hate that those guys were pushed out basically, by big money. They deserve, and let me call the names here, CryptoLions, HKS, they deserve to be in the top, EOS Rio, they deserve to be in the top 10, not out of top 21. Mm-hmm. So right now, from technical standpoint, only 21 block producers have to run Node, actually, to support the blockchain. The standbys don't even have to, and I'm sure some of the standbys don't run. But all of us, technical guys, we run in standby and we support the blockchain, and we probably run more secure hardware configuration and infrastructure than some of the active BPs, to be honest.
Right now, that's
based on my security scanning, we need to have penetration testing and audit of infrastructure of active BPs, because if we are not doing it based on what I see, they're just sitting ducks. They're sitting, some of them, I'm not telling, but there are some that are just sitting ducks for attacks, who are just attractive target.
Why not require the backup nodes, the backup 21 nodes to run actively and ping them and make sure that they're running nodes? Is that something that's been talked about?
Those conversations are just starting right now. So,
okay.
We have to get further out to, obviously, it's the first week. There's a lot of stuff.
Launching the governance, launching the worker proposals. Yeah, there's everything going on right now. So I think that's important, though. Another thought that we've been kind of pinging around is having more backup nodes. Is that something you guys, what's your thought on that?
So I think currently, I think, it's reasonable. We are running on 21 nodes, but I think it would be reasonable, and that idea is not mine. Again, it was raised in the community to extend number of active BP nodes to around 40 or 50 to achieve better decentralization, establish nodes in different countries, and achieve more global decentralization.
The top nodes may not like that because they would share more of the inflation, and
they can increase inflation and keep compensations the same for top 21s. Will not be losing anything financially. But it's just a proposal. It's out there in the community, and obviously community will decide. So it's not,
Okay, and right now we have 21 the main nodes, and then how many backup nodes right now?
49 backup nodes last time, but some of those backup nodes I don't think are even online based on monitor what I see. So probably around 40 active.
Okay, great. Well, that's that I've heard someone say that they'd like to see 21 and then another 42 in backup, so that would be 63. That's just I guess so you'd have 2 full sets of backup nodes. I don't know if that'd be necessary or not, but
it'd be more resilient chain probably.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, definitely.
And I personally like the idea of more smaller chains at least being able to being active as backups and being able to pay their way through it. I think that gives, like you said, as resilient chain. So I like that idea. I don't see it.
It just goes back, like all of this stuff, like goes back to usability. People think that design stops at the front end or what you see, and it's at the system level. The error handling of a system, the file structure, the name spacing, like everything, every part of that is, include some type of human factors, and that's, I was mentioning the talk that I did at Tulip, but it's like we need to, as a community, focus on, how we are looked at by the incumbent systems. And that starts with usability. Like we're not like really, and not just lip service and the Mr. Me Too's that go out there and attach their name to it because it's a talking point, but real professionals who know how to execute that usability and have a background in it. You know what I'm saying? And actually how to do UX themselves, who can design these systems, who can actually look at the game theory and the algorithms and work with other engineers to come up with something that is functional, not just like a web design. You know what I'm saying? That's not going to go. Pretty web design, we already had that in theory, and we need people who can come in and execute.
Yeah.
And we're not, you know, the space in general, you know, this being in the Valley, that there's, you know, there's a shortage of UX engineers. You know, so one of my calls is to all the people who have a little bit of design skill, who have a little bit of skill in this stuff, actually get in and learn how to code some front end. You know, like learn more than WordPress, like learn how to design, learn how to actually create these assets beyond the skill you have now, because you're going to give that value back to the community. We're in a big shortage of front end engineers right now, not just blockchain, but just in general. And there's a huge opportunity for UX people to come into this space and solve these problems. I'm just one of the mouthpieces that's been saying it the last 6 months. You know what I mean? But it's definitely a topic that we can have the tech, but without the usability and the people layer, we're never going to get there. So there's another project besides Coco that we'll be giving a spotlight to here in the coming months. We're really excited about. We hope will help drive that adoption and interest among designers, you know, specifically like real solid UX people, like designed for top agencies and big brands and stuff, not just some local or regional web designer. We've got plenty of those. We need like real sharp, serious people, you know, but we've got the engineers. Now we need to get those people interested and amalgamated. And that's a big part of what I'm trying to do, is bring those people over and show them the EOS way. So what did you think about that moment, Happy at the house, man? Wow.
That was so freaking cool. That was something that I'll be able to just kind of close my eyes and remember forever. You know, that's something I'll remember forever. And it was just, so for the people listening, we had block producers, you know, quite a few block producers, EOS Tribe, probably 10 block producers there. Phil Messner. Mesnier. Oh, Mesnier. Oh, shoot. Mesnier.
Thomas got on to me about that.
Oh, yeah. I know. I've just been throwing his name out wrong everywhere, so that's too bad. Mesnier. But just a lot of the core people from EOS at a house, all hanging out around a table. Phil Mesnier comes into the room, and he had just basically done his magnus opus, like his life work. They'd come to 100% consensus, launched on how to launch the EOS chain. He came in, there was this big sense of relief from him, and also just like this glorious moment, like he's been working 40 years coding, and this was that moment, and we were all there with him. And so we go around the table, we're just standing around this big bar, and everyone says like what EOS means to them, what cryptocurrency means to them, how it integrates with their life, how it's changed their lives, how it's been a part of their culture in different countries. And we had maybe close to every continent in the world represented at the table. And it was just one of the most heartwarming things I've ever seen, because it wasn't just like me and a buddy or me and my wife or someone like sharing something deep. It was this like global, just hearts breaking open and saying, you know, like, this is fucking crazy. We're doing something big here, and we're all together in it. That was rad. Very, very cool.
Oh, awesome. So we got video from that. I got the whole video. I mean, people were crying. Yep. Like, I remember Jake was like, you know, this community isn't like those other coins. And he just broke out in tears. And like Han, and he's teared up talking about how touched he was from the community, and found like this whole new view of Westerners that he had no idea, you know, that he had friends and we all have buddies, but just really seeing into another people's heart, you know, can be huge for international discourse, you know, and that's one of the most powerful things from this community. Me and Eugene are perfect examples. I'm an outspoken, brash guy from Dallas, from the South. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you know what I mean? And he's a kid from Russia.
I'm opposite of that.
He's the opposite of that. He's he's a reserved, you know, technical person from a small town in Russia. So he comes here, and when we really start talking about what motivates us and where our hearts are, we're a lot alike. We have different approaches and different ways of doing it, but what we're out for from this is like exactly the same, and that's what brought us together. And that should be an example of like two people, like the the red state of Dallas that don't trust those Ruskies and all that kind of dialogue, he's probably one of the most trustworthy people I've met in the space. Diligent, honest, one complete transparency. We're putting up our public wallet and reporting dashboard here in the next few weeks. And I mean, he loves that because he knows what happens when you don't have those systems in place that we take for granted. You know what I mean? And like, so he's trying to lead that example from the hardships that he experienced where he came from. So that's a really story within itself, you know?
If you don't have transparency, you have corruption in its place, and it's unavoidable. It's a human nature. How can you prove? Have it in our constitution that no backdoor dealings, no paying for votes, no paybacks, no cutbacks, right? How do you enforce it unless you have audit and unless you have a full transparency? You cannot enforce it. You cannot.
We want these systems. Like, we love it. It's awesome. It could fix a lot of these inefficiencies, and just us as a team should be a shining example of why is this UX guy and this, this like software engineer from totally different parts of the country teaming up. It's like we have the same vision. We know what this could do for the world. And that's a lot of us in the top 50 have this in our hearts. Everyone, every node and person that we've met in the top 300, as far as we know that we've met, has this in their hearts. But particularly some of the people that we've met in the top 50 are like, really want this thing to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they see real like use cases for it in the world, and it could fix a lot of inefficiencies. So.
Yeah, and I think that there's that, specifically in EOS, there's this feeling of there's some big movement going on. Like, we're trying to change the entire world. But then also just cryptocurrency and blockchain in general, there's this idea that, we're onto something that's going to, who knows how we're going to get there, but we're going to change cultures and how people interact. And we're going to have possibly thousands or even millions of these coins that represent microeconomies and networks all over the place, so people can create their own value, and it's going to change everything. And it's just the feeling that we're part of something bigger than kind of this nonsense that we've been tied to is something beautiful. And so I think that when people dig deep enough to understand that, they can't see themselves anywhere else. I mean, yeah. Yeah. So it's a beautiful time where we're in, man. And I every time I think about it, I'm so grateful.
You're up right now. You're like, it touches you, it does.
Yeah, dude. Every time I think about it for real, I get so grateful. It's like, man, I am lucky right now. I'm stoked. This is what I'm doing for, this could be my life's work. And I finally found it, it's rad.
A lot of us feel that way. I tear up myself. Me and Anna get super like, sappy about it ourselves, thinking about the possibilities. I know Eugene and his wife think about, wow, we could make money, but we could actually help the world. This is so much better use of our time. Like, if you know what it's about and you really study this system, it will touch you. It will. There's no way that you cannot be paying attention to, and it may not be EOS. It may be Helios or another version of it that forks. But this technology and what Dan has done and team has done will be transformative. Yep. It will spark the next wave of innovation. There'll be other systems, there'll be other chains. We're not zealots. We know that this chain has its flaws and that we're trying to address those. No system is perfect, but the fact that we made it here, that we're here talking about adoption and real use cases and these top, sharpest, good people I've ever met in any movement, anywhere. And I've been a part of open source. I've been a part of the marketing tracks and the new trends, for 20, 25 years in my career, from offset print days to EOS. I've gone through all those phases when social came in, and there's been nothing like this. I've never witnessed.
We're definitely a step in evolution. It's a step, and we're just at a new plateau, and we will move further, but EOS is a big step forward, I think.
And one of the good things about EOS is that it's moving forward quickly and kind of breaking stuff and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And so regardless of how far EOS doesn't have to be the number one coin, it's pushing the technology forward at such a rapid rate. Like, you can't not appreciate all the manpower and thought that's going into this. And every time something breaks, we know a little bit more about how this is going to work globally. So that's something to appreciate for the people who want to point out what they think is wrong with EOS and the Twitter and the Reddit hate. It's like, okay, fine, but these are innovators. These are people bringing upon the revolution. So, like, hate on it all you want.
We welcome that. Like, I tell everybody, as a community, all you out there that get mad about the fudders and the haters, if it's a personal opportunistic attack, if it's someone just opportunistically who doesn't like you locally and they just want to pull you down and use that as a pulpit, well, screw them. Who cares? But if it's actually somebody with a legitimate debate and they're coming from a place of open dialogue and they want to understand the system, be patient with them.
Yeah,
don't be a zealot. Don't be a zealot. Be an open-minded example of, wow, you're certainly right. And that's something we need to think about and invite them into the discussion, because that's what's going to create that positive feedback loop. We can't be zealots right now. We have to be stewards. There's a time for that. If we've won and we're at the top of the mountain, shoot for the moon, land on the mountain, right? Maybe we won't solve all the world's problems. But if we just bump it up 30% from the last 30% we got from the internet, well, hell, we're 60% there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we got a long ways to go, but we're getting there. As a species, we're trying to figure this out. And it's just as much, just as much as it's a technological evolution, it's a social and human evolution. Because just from the dialogue and the relationships that we're building overseas, you see it. To have a guy from Korea and a dude from Africa and these people from all over the world be on the exact same page, like, we listen to the same music, we're a part of the same core culture. That's beautiful, man. Yep. That's absolutely beautiful. And, if you believe in that and you want to connect with a BP that understands that about this movement, vote for EOS Tribe. Because we will absolutely make sure that you guys are heard in this, and that's fiercely defended. No matter who moves into the space, we'll always be a voice for the smaller and mid-sized token holders just as much as the whales. We obviously haven't pandered for whale votes. It's very obvious we're the popular vote technically by number of votes, but just didn't get a lot of whale love. Like, that's part of this interview, is we want the larger investors to understand we're not idealists. We're pragmatists, it's a balance. We have a lot of idealism and heart and community that comes into this, but we want execution. And if you look at our backgrounds, we're some of the guys who know how to execute. We're not just, our operation has teeth. We're not just some rando idealist who spun up a node. Like, if you do our history as entrepreneurs, we know what we're doing. And we have a path for adoption. And that's going to roll out in the coming weeks. And I think people will see us a little more balanced from maybe how we were in the earlier part of the community. That's a message that we want to send is, you can certainly have your beliefs and ideals, but it comes down to execution. You know what I mean? If you really want to drive adoption, if you really want to bring people into the space, you have to have tangible ways that create inroads and create deal flow, for blockchain. And that's something that we're very focused on nationally and internationally in the coming months. So,
absolutely.
Well, thank you, man. You're so awesome, dude. You're like,
thank you guys. I'm having the time of my life with this, and so I just appreciate the opportunity, and I like talking to you guys because it's always some sort of interesting conversation. I learned something new. Get your guys' message out. So this is proud to be a part of it, man. Well, my crypto friends, thank you for watching again. This is EOS Tribe. As you know, we'll put a link for their website, and think about all this. It's a beautiful thing, and go put a vote in for EOS Tribe. Cheers, my crypto friends.
Love you, Happy. Delete Telegram.
Yeah.
Money is not the prime asset in life. Time is, and your time is just